Hello, Virgo. Welcome to Soul Good. Thank you so much for being here. It's a blessing and pleasure to be joining you. Please do trust that whenever you have found yourself here, there are likely to be messages within the contents of this video for you. Your messages are going to be interesting for sure. I'm just going to preface with a trigger warning. Okay, so let's jump right to it. The message that I had coming in as soon as I started tapping into your energy, Virgo, is that you may, in your recent past, which can mean anything when we're looking at it in terms of God's timing, but in your more recent past or in the coming future, you may find yourself in situations that challenge you. But they're meant to present you with opportunities to be imperfect, to be less critical of yourself, and to be vulnerable, humble, forgiving, transparent, and intimate, not only with yourself, but with others as well. Okay, so essentially, these are opportunities for you to admit that you don't have it, i.e., yourself, altogether. There is this feeling that I was getting of the outer presentation not matching the internal reality. And for some, it feels chaotic. The internal world feels chaotic. It almost feels like trying to keep a lid on Pandora's box. I know that's pretty rough, but that's kind of what it feels like, okay? There's the feeling of focusing or directing energies outward, directing them externally toward your physical reality in an attempt to control things. It's almost as if there's this illusion of control, okay? If I control the outer world, if I hit this mark, if I do this, if I do that, if I accomplish that, if I am perfect externally, or if I appear perfect externally, then the inner things will be good. It's an illusion. It's this goal chasing. There's nothing wrong with having goals and dreams and aspirations. But when we are pursuing things, chasing things, when we are setting these markers or these destinations to try to fill an internal void, to try to remedy something internal, that is where we run into trouble. Because the external world is not going to provide that for you. It can't. Okay? Let's just not beat around the bush here. Let's not mince words. It just can't. So there's this illusion that some of you may have found yourself existing in. So as I was tapping into your energy and bringing some of these messages through, I started to also get a song. And it was a song I don't listen to. I'm just going to be straightforward. But it was on repeat in my head until I wrote it down. And so the song actually that was replaying is called The Monster by Eminem and Rihanna. And I kept hearing, I believe it's like a chorus or the intro or something, but it says, I'm friends with the monster that's under my bed. Get along with the voices inside of my head. You're trying to save me. Stop holding your breath. And with that came a message that you may have convinced yourself that you made friends with your lower egoic drives, that you made friends with your trauma, your wounding, your programming, and that you can just harmoniously coexist, that you could somehow be friends with your lower egoic drives and could find happiness, that you could just allow them to sit within you, that you could just close the door on them, as it were, and still find happiness. The thing of it is, though, is, of course, this is an illusion, and the lower egoic drives are holding a leash. And that leash is around your neck. That leash is around you. There's this belief that, oh, I've made friends with my demons. No, okay, let's get something very clear here. Demons are not your friends, okay? Your lower egoic drives are not your friends. I just want to make that very clear, okay? Whatever you believe, feel free to run free with that. But it is more appropriate to call it a master and slave dynamic, because as these lower egoic drives are given permission to run free, to reign free within you, you have no control. You are a slave to them, and they can rear their ugly head whenever they want. I actually am being reminded of a video I saw once, I believe on YouTube, and forgive me because I cannot recall, it's been so long, who it was or where it came from. But I believe it was of someone giving a sermon, of someone preaching. And basically what they were saying is, the devil will let you think that you have freedom because it'll give you just a little bit of leeway. It'll let you do a couple of things, but as soon as you try to stray too far, it'll just yank you right back. Something will happen and it will yank you right back. You'll think you're free from it, but you're not. So it's this form of spiritual bypassing. Now, this is not to say that one cannot alchemize their trauma wounding programming, that they can't purify themselves, because they absolutely can. But this takes a lot of work. There's no way around that. It takes work to heal. It's not easy to essentially walk through the purifying fire. That's a challenge. It's hard. That's why in the Bible it says the way is narrow. Okay? Because not everybody is going to do it. Not everyone is going to face truth. Not everyone is going to do what is required of them to purify themselves, to atone, to face themselves, to face the darkness, their lower egoic drives, to rid themselves of their lower egoic drives, because it is not easy. And the only way out is through. There's no easy button. There's no shortcut. There's no, I mean, it's, again, it's all of those things are bypassing. Okay? So it's not about making friends. These things that one refuses to acknowledge, that one refuses to face, that one refuses to heal, to purify themselves of, to atone for, you can't make friends with them. And why would you want to? That's the thing. Okay? Like, why would you want to? Those are the things that keep you tethered to the physical world. It's what actually can prevent you from spiritualizing as you are meant to. According to the work of Steiner, We are the 10th order in the 10th hierarchy of angels. And we are meant to fulfill the task, or we are meant to be the angels of brotherly love and freedom. How can you be an angel of freedom if you're being held captive by your lower egoic drives? So please do understand, I'm not sharing this with you as a criticism, as a judgment. We have all been there. We have all been there. I don't care. We've all been there. Unless you are some incredibly exalted spiritual being, okay? We've all been there. So this isn't me, pointing my finger from my high horse looking down my nose. And it is important for us during this stage of our evolution to have discernment. So important, because there's a lot of darkness, a lot of evil in the world, and we have to be able to recognize it and to choose a different path. So in the song, there's another part of it that goes on to say, excuse me for wanting my cake and eat it too, wanting it both ways. Fame made me a balloon 'cause my ego inflated when I blew, see, but it was confusing. So that's the thing of it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't work that way. You cannot purify yourself and spiritualize out of matter, holding on to these lower egoic drives. You cannot resurrect as Christ in Jesus showed us was possible by allowing your lower egoic drives to run amok. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm being reminded of a quote from the Bible: you can't serve two masters. It's one or the other. It's as simple and as complicated as that. Again, this may be something that you have previously come to realize, or something that has been trying to be shown to you, or you may find yourself experiencing this moving forward. And there's a need to understand and discern and be very honest, again, vulnerable, humble, transparent with yourself, especially, but also with others about where you are. And trying to remedy your internal world through external means isn't going to cut it. Okay? I know this is probably something that a lot of people don't really want to have a conversation about. I know this may be very triggering. I understand that. And this may be very uncomfortable. But I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm just the messenger, and I don't like to water things down because that serves no one. The reality of it is, especially moving forward, we are going to have to be able to discern what's true from what's not. And if you cannot acknowledge what's true and what's not within yourself, you certainly are not going to be able to do it when you are facing it in the external world. So depending on where you are in your own journey, you're being given an opportunity to set yourself free, or at least to begin to do that. If you haven't yet, or if you are not experiencing this yet, it is likely that you will be. And it starts with this honesty and transparency with yourself. It starts with being vulnerable with yourself, to allow yourself to not have it, again, i.e. yourself, altogether. To admit that you are flawed, to admit that there are things within you that need to be acknowledged, that need to be addressed, and need to heal. Let's get into the cards and see what other messages would like to come through for you. Father, Mother, Life, Christ, Universe, Spirits, Guides, Angels, our cosmic team, our ancestors, our higher selves, tell us, please, what other messages does Virgo need to hear, please? Why are they here? Thank you. Oh my good golly. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so you start off here with Star Mother. How can you mother yourself? Yeah, exactly. Okay, how can you mother yourself? It is about, Virgo, giving yourself the space to feel what you need to feel, to provide for yourself this safe container, this safe space to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to feel what you need to feel. This is giving me that motherly energy that, you know, kisses your boo-boos, if you will. I know that sounds very childish, but it's coming through that way to paint you this picture, right? Some of you may not have had the space to be able to do this when you were children or in your younger years, or perhaps throughout your life, but it is asking you to tap into that more divine feminine, if you will, regardless of whether you're male or female, that more divine feminine energy, which is allowing, which is emotional, which is vulnerable, which does surrender. It's that motherly energy that creates the space for you to feel what you need to, for you to process what you feel, and for that to be okay. So how can you mother yourself? What things through your experience have you not allowed yourself to feel? Now, that's likely, especially for someone who maybe hasn't really gotten into their own trauma, wounding, or programming, that may be a very difficult question to answer right away, because it does require getting comfortable with yourself. It does require, again, allowing yourself to feel what you need to. It requires you to ask yourself questions, to open up to whatever it is you may find. And that can be really, really hard to do, especially if you are someone who knows that you have a lot of trauma that you have not dealt with. So it may be difficult to start to try to pinpoint, but you're not going to find it out here somewhere in something else. It is going to ask you to go inward to find that and to get comfortable with whatever it is that you find. So it's, again, being comfortable with being triggered, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. But how can you mother yourself? What things are there that may be lurking within you that need to be heard, that need to be expressed, that need to be addressed, that need to be felt? Trust the niggle. What is the niggling feeling trying to tell you? This is coming through. If you look at the card there are two beings who are in black and white standing behind the figure at the forefront, which is in color. This is telling me that there are things beneath the surface that you may have some kind of inkling about, some kind of niggling about, that you, to some degree, know need your attention. To some degree, know you have pushed to the side, you have tucked away, swept under the rug, tucked into the closet, whatever it may be. We can surprise ourselves with how wise we actually are to ourselves once we give ourselves the space to tap into that. When we give ourselves the space to actually open up to that. It's reminding me of, I believe it's NF. I will link it in the notes below under soundtrack, but there's a song of his where, actually I'm getting a couple of songs. One, he says, physically abused, that picture's not blurry at all, I just don't want to see it. Which is really touching heavily on the way that this energy is coming through, because I know it's there, I just don't want to revisit that. I just don't want to deal with it. I just don't want to acknowledge it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to do anything with it. I want it to go away. And that's the trouble, right? They don't just go away. We have to acknowledge them. We have to give ourselves the ability to feel them and heal them. And then there's another song, which is the one I was getting originally, speaking of something very similar. And I believe they come from the song called Change. Basically what he's saying is, I know what it is, I just don't want to do it. We either convince ourselves that there's nothing we can do about it, or we try to tuck it away and ignore it and pretend like it's not there. So, this could be showing up a lot of different ways, and I'm not trying to invalidate anyone's pain or suffering. I just want to make that very clear. I say that because I know that the recognition of what some things are isn't going to come easily for everyone. And the thing about it is, when we try to ignore that niggling, when we try to ignore those nudges that are saying, hey, this is something that you have to address, this is something that needs your attention, and we try to bury it. It's like that story I gave earlier, right? Where the devil can give you a little bit of leeway. It'll give you a little bit of space, but then it's going to yank you right back the minute you try to stray too far. It's kind of like that, right? Because we can tell ourselves whatever story is about that thing, but the problem is that it doesn't just go away. Oftentimes it'll grow, and it can become this pressure cooker that just builds and builds and builds, and then all of a sudden, boom, something explosive happens, which is meant to position you to acknowledge it. It's meant to bring your full attention to it. I'm getting a lot of fear coming up, a lot of fear. And the problem can be that things can be explosive, and instead of addressing the things, it's just swept under the rug again. It's just bypassed again. And maybe you'll have some time that passes where, everything seems hunky-dory fine, but then boom, there it is again. And here's the thing. What often goes unnoticed, or what maybe isn't always attributed to its proper cause, is those lower egoic drives, your trauma wounding programming, if you're not addressing it, it's controlling you. As I was sharing earlier, right? It is that slave master dynamic, if you will. You are a slave to it. Why? Because it shows up, it floods into every area of your life, even if you don't know that that's what's going on, even if you don't see clearly how it's impacting these other areas of your life. You may think, oh, it's just that explosive thing that happened. That's the thing, right? And again, you get this false sense of security that's like, oh, if it's just this thing that shows up every now and again, I can control it, right? I can make friends with my demons or whatever. But the reality is, it's actually controlling many areas of your life. You're just not seeing it. You're just not recognizing that this is where it's coming from. It can pour over into how you have conversations. It can pour over into how you think about yourself, how you think about the world, how you move in the world. And once you start healing those things, once you start acknowledging them and working through them, it is mind-blowing. It will truly shake the foundations of your entire reality. I shared this example in another video recently, but I'll share it here just to give you an idea. And this is very surface level, okay? But take what I'm about to share with you and think about how deep this can really go, okay? There was a point in my life where I absolutely loved shows like Law and Order SVU and Criminal Minds. Once I started healing, zero interest, none, nada whatsoever. And there was a point in my life where I watched these types of shows daily. Legit, daily, okay? Now I have no interest. Why is that? It's because it was my trauma, my wounding that had a connection with those stories. Not me, but my trauma and wounding. So think about that. Think about how surface level that is. The same thing for music. There are songs that I used to love. Can't listen to them now. It's like nails on a chalkboard. When you consider how surface level that is, you can then ponder upon and imagine how much your trauma, wounding, and programming can flood every aspect of your life, every corner of your life, which is why I feel it came through the way it did in this slave master dynamic, because you really are this slave to it. And what is, oh yes, there's a quote from Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, these things are calling the shots behind the scenes, and you think that that's who you are. You think that that's your life. You think this is you, and it's not. Once you start making those things conscious, you start to realize how much of what you are doing, what you enjoy, what you have experienced, how you perceive the world, how you move in the world is actually not you. And again, it will shake you to your core. It's mind-blowing. Can't make it up. Truly, you mirror who or what is triggering you. Like I said, it is about addressing these things and understanding that when you are triggered, that is not some kind of punishment. It is not some kind of It is not that the universe is out to get you, that God is out to get you. It is for you. You're triggered by it so that you become aware of it. That's the point. That's the purpose. But because we are so heavily programmed, and our trauma and our wounding can be calling the shots, oftentimes we want to, oh, I don't want to feel that way. There are many who believe that there's something wrong with feeling bad, if you will, with feeling sadness or anger. And the truth is, the vast spectrum of human emotions that we can experience are sacred. They have wisdom and knowledge to share with us if we choose to allow ourselves to see that. And so again, it feels as though you may find yourself in these experiences, whether with yourself or perhaps with others, which are trying to give you the opportunity to acknowledge, to address, to heal some of these things that you have been carrying within you, to set you free from this prison. And the thing of it is you are the only one that can do it. No one else can. We have free will. You can, with your free will, from this current density, believe a lie 100%. That is your God-given free will. But you can also acknowledge truth. You have to choose to free yourself. Which, again, I mean, coming back to the song, right? Like, you're trying to save me, stop holding your breath, because no one else can do it for you. You have to be willing to do it yourself, and this is your opportunity. Okay, let's see what else. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you. So we have here, yeah, Six of Swords. In the reverse, this is absolutely that energy of holding on to these things within you. In the upright, the Six of Swords is about leaving behind pretty much everything that you've known. Okay, and venturing into new waters. But in the reverse, it's clinging. Okay, it's clinging. And with the Two of Swords showing up with it, there is an awareness of this to some degree, but it's a matter of choosing to do it. This also is really speaking heavily to me because she's blindfolded, right, of not wanting to see it, not wanting to make the hard decisions. And it is a hard decision. I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. Choosing to face your trauma, your wounding, your fear, your programming, choosing to heal, facing yourself is one of the hardest things you will ever do, period. And that's coming from someone with a lot of trauma, okay? It is one of the hardest things you will ever do. So it really is speaking to the amount of courage that it takes to make these hard decisions, to choose to acknowledge what you know within you versus pretending like it's not there. 10 of Cups in the reverse. It's actually giving this message of whatever you choose to do, either path you choose, it's going to disrupt your life. It's going to disrupt your internal world, no matter what you do. So it's a matter of essentially the message that's coming through is pick your pain. Either way, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Either way, it's going to disrupt how you've felt about things thus far and how you feel about things moving forward. The only difference is one path will eventually lead you to a space of harmony and peace, fulfillment, if you let it, and one won't. Both are going to be uncomfortable. Both are going to impact how you experience life. But one is just going to continue to create disharmony. It's going to continue to wreak this havoc, especially on your internal world and your relationships and these sorts of things. But the other will eventually, if you let it and if you pursue it, it will lead you to peace and fulfillment, harmony, eventually. 9 of Pentacles. 9 of Pentacles is this energy of fulfillment and attainment, both spiritually and materially, but it's work that you do on your own. No one can do it for you. And I feel this is why this is coming up, because true fulfillment doesn't come from the external world. It comes from within you. 8 of Wands. Interestingly, you go 10, 9, 8. Should you choose to pursue a path of healing and harmony and fulfillment, you may feel like you're taking steps backwards. It's very likely that it will feel that way for some time. And of course, this is depending on you and your journey and God's purpose over your life, but you may feel like you're taking steps back, but what happens is you end up slingshotting forward. Things happen much more quickly than what you think that they might, right? So you may believe that perhaps something that you've been carrying since childhood or for many years, that it's going to take you incredibly long to be able to heal from it, to be able to start to move past it. I'm hearing acknowledging it is half the battle, and it is. So that's not to say that it's like Amazon and you're just going to overnight, things are going to be great. But it may take a lot less time than what you imagine. And it may feel like you're taking steps backwards because things built up around the beliefs that have been created as a result of the trauma wounding programming. As those things start to fall apart, the life you've built up around those things may also start to fall apart. And so it may feel like you're taking steps backwards. But what you're actually doing is getting down to the foundation and are then given an opportunity to build up from the new foundation something much stronger, something that will be much longer lasting, something that won't be so easily dismantled. you are setting yourself up to be propelled forward. What else wants to come through for Virgo? Thank you. Okay. So we have here fixed action, momentum, dedication. It does. It requires dedication. It requires you to take action. And it does require this immense amount of courage and strength. Eight of Wands is a card of action as well. And so what this is saying is you have to be willing to take that action. You can't be fixed in your ways. You have to be willing to move. Otherwise, you're just keeping yourself caged. And I'm getting a lot of fear. New moon, creation, intention, potential. Right. Not allowing yourself to move, remaining fixed, keeping yourself caged, keeps you from your true potential. And again, this is really bringing forward that message of it requiring you to take action, it requiring you to be intentional. You have to be this active participant in your own healing. Planetary return, cyclicality, homecoming, progress. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, the cycles will keep repeating. They will keep repeating. So to break free from this, to come home to yourself, truly to come home to your true self, to break free from this, to actually make progress, you have to be willing to step outside of the cycle. You have to be willing to acknowledge it and address it. Otherwise, you're just gonna be on a loop. And the wild thing about it again is that if you are unaware of how much that these things can actually flood into every crevice of your existence, and you just chalk it up to these, explosive pressure cooker moments, then you're given this false sense of security, but you're still on the loop. It will still come back around. You will still experience those explosive things. And the unfortunate part about that is you have zero control over when these things happen. None. And oftentimes those within the vicinity of that explosion are the people you love and care about the most. Or it shows up in ways that have the most, let's say, impact. Because again, it's essentially God saying, hey, you have to look at this. It will ruin your life if you don't. And we have to push aside our ego. We have to humble ourselves and seek that forgiveness for ourselves and others, or whatever, or however that may apply to what we're holding. Finally, you have 𝒂𝒗, Nadir, origins, inner child. For some of you, this is confirmation that this stems back to your childhood. For others of you, this speaks to getting to the root of whatever the trauma, wounding, or programming is. It's not just about treating the symptom, but the cause. And many of us, with our trauma, our wounding, our programming, try to remedy or reconcile whatever it is by treating the symptom versus diving deeper, versus exploring further. So it's continuing to ask questions until you reach a point where you can't ask any more questions. Finding the root, finding the cause. Where did this come from? Why is it here? And being radically honest and transparent with yourself. Let's get some final messages for Virgo, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we start here with the beaver. You could be someone who has directed your focus and your energy towards your work or your family or both. And I understand those obligations. However, this has also been used to avoid your internal world. So there are times that instead of focusing inward, being reflective, introspective, getting quiet with ourselves, exploring our inner world, really asking ourselves the hard questions, getting truthful and transparent, we will direct our energy outwardly, externally. And a lot of times this can manifest as being a workaholic. That's just one of many, many ways. Now, I'm not saying that taking care of your family is bad, okay? I'm not saying going to work is bad. I'm not criticizing those actions at all. But when we refuse to acknowledge our inner world and focus all of our energy on these external things, that's when things can become unhealthy, because we are avoidant. Panther, yeah. Avoidant of what we need to purge ourselves of. The panther is an energy of purging, of annihilation. And the whole point of the panther is essentially to come in with this fiery energy to purify us of these things that aren't serving us. And so focusing or directing our energy towards our work or our family or outwardly, externally, we can avoid what we know we need to be ridding ourselves of, what we know we need to let go of. And the unicorn in the out of balance position. Now, this is a spirit card, and we will read from the guidebook for this card. But what I want to say before we do that is the unicorn is connected to the third eye, your intuition. And so, as I was just speaking on, it is avoiding what we know we need to acknowledge, what we know we need to rid ourselves of, what we know we need to purge. And so with it being in this out of balance position, there is this, I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. Okay? And as I was saying earlier, which we're going to read on here in a minute, but just reading the first little description here of the unicorn, it triggered a message. As I mentioned earlier, those lower egoic drives keep us anchored in the physical world. It can keep us separate from our highest selves, our higher selves. And it's interesting that we were speaking on that earlier, because here's the unicorn and it says reconnecting to higher wisdom or divinity, which is what we're all meant to be doing. It says, it's difficult to see, hear, or think of a unicorn without immediately questioning if it's real. Did they ever exist? Perhaps a long, long ago? The mind answers maybe, or it could be, or no way. This very contemplation explains our relationship with divinity and encapsulates our wavering belief in the unicorn. We wonder what divinity is. We wonder where our intuition comes from and if we can really trust it. We think about a higher power and our mind hesitates between yes and no and maybe. Is it male or female? Does it have a name? Is it just a feeling? The unicorn card appears and wakes us up to curiosity about the higher self and the divine. It is a card of questioning, exploring, and contemplating the inexplicable. The mind's eye knows there is something beyond our day-to-day lives, a deeper dimension to our experiences. The mind's eye reaches and reaches and reaches out to grasp something more. You are the unicorn, and you have begun your quest for the answers. It's no surprise the subtle essence of the unicorn card resides at the third eye, the exact place from which the unicorn's horn extends. This center is called the ajna. Forgive me if I'm botching that. The ajna chakra, or command center. The ancient yogis believed it to be responsible for our intellect, intuition, and deepest wisdom. Some say our two eyes see the past and present, while this third eye peers into the future. So, focusing that energy and attention outwardly and not purging what needs to be purged keeps us disconnected from our higher selves, from that higher wisdom, from our divinity, if you will. And so again, there is this opportunity being presented to you, Virgo, to free yourself. It is giving that opportunity to reconnect with your higher self, with that higher wisdom, with your divinity, and with the divine. I once heard Gigi Young say, aligning with a lie is aligning with the Antichrist. So those lies pull you further from Christ, further from God. Christ has said, I'm the way, the truth, the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. That being said, anything that is a lie has to be purified in order to spiritualize, in order to align with what's called the life wave or the Christ impulse, the Christ wave. If that's something you want to look deeper into, I would absolutely suggest the work of Gigi Young, the work of Rudolf Steiner, or the work of Douglas Gabriel. Take it how it resonates with you, of course. Do not make it your story if it isn't. Use your discernment. Take it back to God. Pray about it. Meditate on it. Whatever it is that you do. But please do use your discernment. This has been a bit heavy, a bit challenging, and I certainly understand if it's been triggering for some, but I pray that it has been valuable or helpful to you in some way as you move forward in your journey. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sending so much love your way. Take care of your evolving, learning, growing soul. Peace be with you and within you, and I hope to see you in another chat.